BBOR, Black Box Online Radio, coming to you from West Virginia. Black Box Ned88 on Instagram for the bonus podcast. All right, and just to begin, a big thank you to everybody who listened to our discussion series on the Zodiac killer suspect, Robert Linkletter. And throughout that discussion, we frequently mentioned an individual named Mae Brussel, because Mae Brussel came into the possession of a particular letter that possibly, allegedly, maybe incriminated Robert Linkletter in the Zodiac killer crimes. But you can hear more about that in our three-part discussion series on Robert Linkletter as a Zodiac killer suspect, available here on this channel. And because Mae Brussel was a radio host, a broadcaster, as well as someone who was featured in various forms of literature, and by that I mean people talking about her stuff, people analyzing her work and material. There were so many things about Mae Brussel that were available on the internet. I began just going down that pathway, and I knew that this was going to happen. This happens every time I start learning about something that just has a certain level of intensity. You just can't stop until eventually maybe you'll reach your destination, or perhaps you'll just keep going down the rabbit hole forever. But I thought that this would be a good opportunity to talk about Mae Brussel and some of the claims that she was making, because last night I had an opportunity to watch the video on YouTube called Mae Brussel in Santa Cruz, and I thought that it was going to be a documentary, and it's somewhat done in a documentary fashion, but in reality what they had done is they had taken one of her lectures or presentations or a talk that she had given, and they had interlaced it with several other smaller video segments, but the majority of the video, which was going nearly 2 hours, was talking a lot about just Mae Brussel giving her presentation on some things that she believed about how the world was functioning. So, let's have an introduction. Mae Brussel was born May 29th, 1922, and she passed away on October 3rd, 1988, from cancer. And they even talked about this very loosely in Mae Brussel in Santa Cruz when they were saying that it's possible that, well, I guess you should just say that the conspiracy theory minds are already running, saying that she was taken out, that certain things were done to cause her to have cancer intentionally by transplanting certain types of waves and such. I can't even really go down that pathway, and I really don't want to misrepresent any of the claims that Mae Brussel would have made herself. I mean, those things that I just said that all, of course, came after her death. I don't want to misrepresent her claims because they're very detailed and intricate, and I think that we can talk about some of them in a very general setup, but Mae Brussel's material extends so much larger than the Zodiac Killer mystery, the Manson family connection. She is perhaps more famously known for being someone who was very critical of the Kennedy assassination, and particularly the Warren Commission. And those are some things that you could hear about not only in Mae Brussel and Santa Cruz, but also in her works that she had done, particularly Dialogue, Conspiracy. They have some great episodes on YouTube that you can listen to for free, and you can just hear things about how her largest claim, as I understand, is no matter what your theory is about John F. Kennedy and the assassination of the 35th president, is that it was a major operation. It was an operation that involved many different people, and I'm not really much of a Kennedy assassination expert, so I can't even tackle that, but the claim that she wanted to put forward was very simple. Or, I mean, it's a simple claim, but her stance is that it is complicated and that it was impossible for a single gunman to have taken out John F. Kennedy, because he would have had to have been supported by an existing power structure and network. And we've only really done one series on the Kennedy assassination here on this channel when we talked about Michael Collins Piper and the claim that there was some sort of Israeli Mossad connection to John F. Kennedy, but I mean, those things definitely seem to be true, but those are more political claims rather than conspiratorial. So, we're actually going to go over to Mae Brussel's website, which is going to have some material that is going to help us out for this discussion, and this is their biography that they wanted to share about Mae Brussel and some of the things that she said about the Kennedy assassination, as well as other subjects. And the other subject I think are even more fascinating. Okay, Mae Brussel had quite an awakening in 1963 when President Kennedy was assassinated, and again when she read and cross-indexed the massive 26-volume Warren Commission hearings. She saw that the international terrorist network had made up the Axis powers during World War II and had gone underground, and continued their worldwide fascist campaign, overthrowing one country after another, and America was not exempt. And this was the largest thing that I came away with from in the documentary slash presentation, Mae Brussel in Santa Cruz. It was that Mae Brussel was trying to argue that there is an oligarchical structure. And when we say oligarchy, we mean the few, a group of people that have power. It's not done like an aristocracy by bloodline. Instead, different types of people can be absorbed into it. And you can even think of this in terms of elitism, that there is this type of elite ruling class. And what this does is it is against everybody else because the oligarchy wants to stay in power. And it even included individuals from Nazi Germany. I mean, the British, the Nazis, and certain members of the United States of America. The oligarchy is indifferent to anything like borders, anything like nationality. It's about the few, the powerful, the global elites. And this will expand itself into a wide variety of conspiracy theories. In all seriousness, I really didn't think that the claims that Mae Brussel was making were that different of Alex Jones and InfoWars, or perhaps one of Alex Jones's predecessors, William Cooper. It's a typical super conspiracy model that says that there are many different conspiracies that are linked together. But I thought that something that appeared to be not exactly unique to Mae Brussel, but I haven't exactly heard it packaged this way, because it even ties into individuals such as Henry Kissinger, who of course is coming from Germany to the United States and then would go on to become National Security Advisor and Secretary of State, but just showing how an individual like him could have worked his way into the oligarchy because he was a useful individual to them, and he was very beneficial to them, and this ties into Nelson Rockefeller, and then the British School of Political Economy, and it's really showing that these interactions between certain elite circles and the ability to incorporate new individuals into them who are beneficial to their power structure allows this oligarchy to expand its power and maintain its grasp on the power controls. Because some of the other claims that Mae Brussel was making were involving this power structure that she was just talking about, and she mentioned a particular individual that we've only talked about very loosely on this channel, and his name is John Stockwell. When I first started this channel, I was all about learning about John Stockwell's material. He wrote the book In Search of Enemies, as well as another one called The Praetorian Guard, which I think is a little bit more fascinating because it really takes the stuff from his lectures that I really became very acquainted with in 2017. But 3 years is a long time actually, so I already would say that I'm a little bit rusty on some of those things. But she's talking about how there is this type of individual like John Stockwell, who was a former CIA director. He was the director of the CIA Angola operation. At the time, he was the highest ranking CIA director to go public. But then she noticed that John Stockwell was being very dismissive of these connections to Nazi Germany, or just the entire concept of the Nazis in general. He would talk a lot about the global elites, power structures. I mean, in the first video I ever heard that John Stockwell talk about, I was like, what is this stuff? This is just the typical New World Order conspiracy. But the thing is, though, people actually do provide information that seems like they can substantiate their claims. And it turns out, guess what? Foreign governments are destabilized to preserve certain existing power structures. So what we can really see is that, I mean, it depends on who we want to listen to. It also depends on what perspective we're going to be going down. And it also really goes to show you that other people can be talking about different sides of the issue that we're trying to describe. If you think of life as just a giant Rorschach test or an ink blot, some people are describing this corner of the ink blot, and other people are describing this corner of the ink blot. But when it comes to the concept of global elites, back in 2018 and 19, one point that I greatly wanted to reinforce on the channel was, I am not completely sold on the typical super conspiracy model, but one point that I was sold on, but from people like Mae Brussel, from people like John Stockwell, and even perhaps some other individuals like William Cooper was, the concept of oligarchy is very real. That concentrations of power can exist, the same way that concentrations of wealth can exist. But we're going to look at power reserved to the few, and this few is trying to unleash their presence to the world and to maintain their current power structure so that power is remained for the few. They will do this in very extreme ways. And this expands into some of the other things that I was learning about from Mae Brussel's radio show. And once again, this is all available on YouTube for free. She's talking about how the CIA was trying to experiment with mind control, but not only at MK Ultra, various experiments that happened throughout the 20th century. And when you hear about like MK Ultra, the CIA's experimenting with mind control, I don't know about you guys. The first time I heard that stuff, I was just like, okay, this stuff is just far out wacky woo woo. It sounds like they're talking about psychic powers. And if I've understood anything from the James Randi school of thought, is that some of it actually was about trying to see if people could develop psychic powers or not, but on the other side, it was also about turning people into kamikaze-style programmed killers, or trying to see if they could make people kill other individuals, or just turn into super soldier-style programmed killbots by under certain conditions. Like, under certain conditions, this person is going to unleash their homicidal tendencies. I think that might be a better way of phrasing that. And this will go into some other things, such as the Manson family, looking at how Charles Manson was a CIA informant. And Mae Brussel is talking about this stuff in the 1970s. It really sounded like Tom O'Neill made some enormous revelations with his book Chaos, which he did, because he provided a lot of ways to back up and support his claims, as opposed to just listening to somebody on the radio and now listening to somebody on YouTube. But when I'm listening to Mae Brussel talking about these things, the psychiatrist Jolly West, who was working with Manson, as well as Jack Ruby, and also in MK Ultra, she's saying all of these things back in the 1970s. So when it comes to the Zodiac Killer mystery, you can see that her suspect in that one, or one of the suspects, because mostly she talked about the Zodiac Manson connection, as I understand from listening to just several things on YouTube, it also appears that she was going down the pathway of Robert Linkletter being a Zodiac Killer suspect, and looking at that as just another example of elitism. The California elites have their own types of power structure. And here's another thing that we should say, if we're on this subject. There's a very large claim out there, and it's a total conspiratorial claim, but that is that the CIA is the private arm of the global elites. I mean, I first heard about this on a program called United Front Radio that I used to listen to back in 2018, that exact type of phrasing. The CIA is the private arm of the global elites. If you would like to challenge any of these claims in the comment section below, please do so. But then what people like Mae Brussel would do is also add on to things like that, that the CIA is not the only private arm, or if that's the larger arm of the global elites, then there will be smaller arms of the global elites. And it can even take the presence of some type of thrill-kill cult and such, and that all of these things serve the same purpose. They're just different arms of the existing oligarchical power structures. And one of the reasons why the elites are so fascinated with occultism is because they have their own belief systems. I mean, they're doing very destructive things, so they have their own type of belief system that justifies their destructive tendencies. Genocide, as well as causing a famine in another country, destabilizing another government, creating a war. These are very destructive, and they want to have some type of belief system that would justify that. And let's go back to Mae Brussel's website here. Frustrated that this vitally important information was largely unknown to the American people, Mae went to her friend Henry Miller of Big Sur, California. He told her that people can do anything they want if they apply themselves, live anywhere, learn anything, and there is nothing worse than looking back and regretting not having done what was important to you. Don't die before you're dead. And with that advice, Mae moved herself and the kids to Carmel, California, and began the selfless, nonstop journey of political work and history and research that would soon rock the radio airwaves of Monterey and Santa Cruz from 1971 through 1988. And as we said, of course, Mae Brussel passed away in 1988 at the age of 66, born in 1922. Her listeners would never be the same. While most of America slept, Mae saw that most Americana was being infiltrated, murdered, infected, poisoned, or deregulated. As Mae stated at the University of California, Santa Cruz, what is happening to us is a classical case of totally destroying us. And as far as poison being goes, even on her website at the top, they talk all about the fluoride conspiracy, which is one that I'm not a genuine believer in, or that I exactly endorse. And there are some reasons for that, but we would have to do that in a whole other upload, because what I think is so much more valuable to talk about in these types of discussions is how are power structures functioning? And you can even look at some other people, whether it's Alex Jones or Dr. Jordan Peterson, who's talking about how groups sort themselves out into hierarchies. dominance hierarchies, competence hierarchies, whatever you'd like to say. There's going to be someone who is going to be more powerful at the top, and then there are going to be people in the middle, and then people at the bottom. And then sometimes there'll be people who are outside the dominance hierarchies who are treated like pariahs. But then the point is, there will be someone at the top, and this person can often be corrupt, tyrannical, and just because somebody is at the top of the dominance hierarchy doesn't mean they have their best intentions. And if they do not remain at the top of the dominance hierarchy, or if they don't remain at the top of any existing power structure, they won't be powerful anymore. So no matter who this person is, no matter how many people are involved, what happens is, as I understand from, following along with people like Mae Brussel, John Stockwell, and Bill Cooper and some other individuals, is they will try to preserve power at all costs. So that's why they will do very tyrannical things, as well as also just doing very destructive things to the human body. And we understand from looking at things like MK Ultra and looking at other things about just how organizations want to experiment with the human body and mind control. They just want to ask and answer questions about pushing humanity to its limits and really trying to learn, why do people have these types of responses and why do people have those types of responses, whether it's trying to learn, why do some people have a mystical spiritual experience under the effects of psilocybin and other individuals don't? Well, let's start doing very heinous experiments to find out. Or also learning about how people can resist interrogation techniques, or even the concept of what we've been more or less talking about here is, how would you turn an ordinary individual into a kamikaze-style fighter that is going to morph into some type of killbot mode? Like, would this be something that they will be able to apply to some sort of super soldier program in the future? Now, I mentioned that some people were being somewhat conspiratorial about the death of Mae Brussel, so let's go on here and look at another paragraph that is written on her website. There were times when death threats drove Mae off the air, once by Charles Manson family member Sandra Good in September of 1975. Sometimes Mae resorted to recording her shows at home on a small cassette tape recorder and privately mailing out copies to her subscribers. And in Mae Brussel and Santa Cruz, they did talk about this heavily, that she really did receive numerous death threats. And that's one of the reasons why some people believe that some type of situation was manipulated so that she would have gotten cancer. And I mean, I can't really comment too much on that because, once again, I do not know the specifics of that incident 100%. However, I mean, it really seemed like she was somewhat, not exactly paranoid, but concerned. Not paranoid, but concerned. In 1983, Mae's show was picked up by the listener-sponsored KAZU-FM in nearby Pacific Grove. 5 years later, she was forced off the air for the last time from death threats, but continued sending out weekly tapes to subscribers until June 13th of 1988. Mae died of cancer on October 3rd of that same year. Once again, 1988, she was 66 years old. Now, let's just have some honest discussions, because I would like to say that this is a subject that is beyond fascinating, beyond enthralling. There's not even an adjective that can describe what you would really feel when you're going to be talking about how people manipulate the power structures to get ahead in life. I think it's a giant mystery of wanting to know about, how do some people become powerful? How do they preserve power? And what really is going on behind the scenes with our government? So I can definitely thank Mae Brussel for her contributions. And I just know, some way, somehow, every morning when I drink my coffee, I'm going to be listening to her show until I run out of episodes. I really get into that mode. But I would just like to reinforce one point that I said during our uploads on Alex Jones, and we have a couple of them here on this channel of Black Box Online Radio. And as always, you can like and subscribe if you'd like to follow along with these things. But what I would say about that is that Alex Jones tried to get people angry at the people, talking about the globalists, the tyrants, the social engineers. It's not about the people. In 90 years, they'll all be dead. And yes, even Henry Kissinger. But what happens is, it's really about the mechanism which allows oligarchy to propagate. And if oligarchy is a real thing, there's a mechanism that allows oligarchy to propagate and allows the oligarchy to fortify itself, allows the oligarchy to maintain its current power structure. And the way that this functions in society, that's the New World Order. But it's not so much about getting mad at the Rockefellers or getting mad at any type of conglomerate, or even getting mad at people like Xi Jinping, the president of China. The people are not as significant as the way in which it is happening. So, I mean, I definitely think that we can even learn things from somebody like Alex Jones, but definitely from people like Bill Cooper. William Cooper was an excellent political commentator. That's one of the things that people rarely talk about. I mean, he just had very clear insights on the American political process, and I really think as I go through Mae Brussel, I'm going to learn some more things from her, because even though when it comes to a political idea, no matter how crazy it is, you can wrap your head around it and you can challenge it and debate it. When you're talking about this underlying shadow network of cult-like activity, that's a little bit more difficult, because the claim isn't simply that, okay, there are oligarchs and that's bad. The claims that are made by an individual like Mae Brussel really extend beyond that, saying that these individuals are committing murders and they're trying to leave signatures to sort of taunt the general public, hiding in plain sight. But these are all things that are done in some form of cult-like activity. Examples of this would be David Berkowitz. And one thing about Mae Brussel is, I was listening to her episode on David Berkowitz, and I'm sure she has many, but I guess I would say I was listening to my first episode on David Berkowitz, and I mean, she is an excellent radio broadcaster. I mean, an hour went by in the blink of an eye. I couldn't believe it. She just has such an engaging voice. It really is some good stuff, definitely in terms of the way the broadcast is presented. But this ties into some other things that are similar, such as perhaps Maury Terry and the Ultimate Evil, as well as just looking at the possibility that there could be thrill kill clubs, as well as murderous cults that are connected to elite circles. And these are the things that I would love to investigate more. I want to know about this stuff just because I'm an ordinary human being living on planet Earth, and I want to know what else is going on here on our planet. All right, well, that's all for me now. If you have anything you'd like to weigh in the comment section below, please drop something. And if you have anything you'd like to say about the nature of the CIA, occult practices of the global elites, the concept of oligarchy in general, and if you also have things to say about individuals such as Alex Jones or William Cooper or John Stockwell, or of course, Mae Brussel, please share something in the comment section below, and I would love to discuss these things with you. If you like this upload, you can hit the like button, and if you haven't subscribed yet, you're welcome to do so. But most importantly, let's continue the discussion, and I'll see you on Instagram for the bonus podcast. Until next time.